Welcome to this online conference about wool, tourism and innovation. I'm Svanhildur and I'm your host today. We are
That's the third time I've got you ringing now. Your copy's just next to you. Have you tried the help stuff?
Sorry. Okay, do you hear me now? Okay, I will start again. Welcome to this online conference about wool, tourism and innovation. We are extremely happy to welcome so many wool lovers here today and experience all the interest that we have been given last days because of this topic that we are talking about today. The subject here today is to learn how we can raise awareness and value of wool. This precious but often undervalued material, and we want to do it through rural responsible tourism, innovation and persistence. We will hear stories from amazing people who are pioneers when it comes to wool, all in their own way. This conference is hosted by Textilecenter Ísland, or the Icelandic Textilecenter, and funded by NORA through the project Wool Walks and Workshops in the North Atlantic region. The project revolves around the fact that wool is ull er gull, wool is gold, if it's treated right. And we want to teach others to look at it with the same eyes. There are 5 countries involved in the project: Greenland, Norway, the Faroe Islands, Scotland, and Iceland. We want to start today's program by showing you a short video about the project Wool Walks and Workshops in the North Atlantic region. Enjoy.
In the Faroe Islands we have the saying, "Glöggt gestins eyga," which means that the eye of the guest is sharp, it sees things differently. This project started with an American that came to the Faroe Islands. She went out to visit some farmer. At the farm she could see that they were throwing away their skin and their wool. And she was shocked that we just throw away this good resource that we have. But to us it has become normal, because wool has not had a lot of value for many, many years.
In this project, we are designing wool tours to make people, both our guests and our stakeholders, aware of the value of wool. There are 4 countries taking part in this project: the Faroe Islands, Iceland, Norway and Greenland, in collaboration with Scotland. This week we have been in Norway. We are here to learn and to get to know the people and the facts about wool and wool processing in Norway to help us develop our tours.
The process from the wool on the sheep to the sweater or the coat that we are wearing is very long. We have got a really good insight into that process on this visit. We have met the sheep, we have seen the wool where it's washed, carded and spun into yarn. We have seen some knitting, and then sewing and making it into the end product that we can buy and wear.
Sustainability and honesty is really important when we are talking about wool and wool production. We also want to focus on local people who are working with wool from their heart, like artists, craft peoples and knitters who use enormous amounts of wool in their works. And they know the true value of wool. Everything local is of our interest, like local food, local production, and the aim is to support the local communities that we will visit in the tour.
All of these countries have this North Atlantic sheep. They are all related, they all have the same wool, and they have been adapted to the landscape, to the weather in these countries. So the wool has been protecting the sheep from all kind of weather, sun, rain, snow. And if we wear this wool ourselves, we too are protected against all kind of weather. And we want to make people aware of that.
Okay, so now you know a little bit more about this project that we are working on in this NORA, about wool and wool tourism. But now I think it's time to start the real program here. And our first speaker today is Ólöf Ýrr Atladóttir. She is a destination development and management consultant. She has been involved with tourism for over 30 years and has specialized in holistic, responsible tourism strategies for national and regional destinations. She currently heads the Division of Research, Innovation and Academic Affairs at Hólar University in North Iceland. Ólöf also runs her own business, Sóti Summits, an adventure activity and accommodation company in North Iceland. Ólöf Ýrr worked from 2018 till 2021 in Saudi Arabia, first as a Chief Management and Marketing Officer at the Royal Commission for Al-Ula, and later as a Director of Destination Management at the Red Sea Development Company. And I know Ólöf has something and some stories to tell us that are inspired from Saudi Arabia. Ólöf, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Svanhildur. I'm going to endeavor to share my screen very quickly. Do we have it? Yes, great. So, thank you so much for having me today. I have never ever been asked to participate in a learned discussion about handicrafts, and especially about knitting or using wool, because I think that everybody who knows me knows that I am fairly I have 10 thumbs. I'm blessed with 10 thumbs on each hand, and have not been known for my artistic expression through handicrafts. So I'm actually very, very honored to be able to speak here, because I know that the people here have a vast knowledge of wool. However, I did gain some thoughts and insights, perhaps, both during my years as the director of Icelandic tourism, and no less during my years in Saudi Arabia, where there is a tremendous effort ongoing in building up tourism, or we should say leisure tourism, because Saudi has been the leader, of course, in the forefront in religious tourism, but the destination is in its infancy when it comes to leisure tourism. And they are now striving towards diversifying their economic pillars by tourism, among other things. Now, Saudi has a very, very rich culture and has tens of, or even hundreds of thousands of years of history of human inhabitants. I think the oldest human remains of any type are said to be even 150,000 years old. And all over Saudi Arabia, you see relics of 5 to 10,000 year old habitats or remnants of cultures that we are long gone and we have no knowledge of. And we also, of course, see that the cultural offer is diverse and has very, very many intricacies. However, in Saudi, in the past decades, not much care has been taken to raise or focus on workmanship, artistic expression, or keeping or preserving or keeping the know-how of how things were done in the past as a basis for how they might be developed for the future. Now, the nation itself, or the country of Saudi Arabia, is young, only 100 years old. And in some ways, when I lived there, reminded me of Iceland, because there has been this hurry to reach the sort of same age as other countries, other independent countries. And that is also, of course, it mixes with the religious foundations of the country as the hosts and preservers of the two out of the three main Islamic places of worship in the world. And after 1979, which was a very difficult year in the region, arts, crafts, and culture were not supported very much for a long time. There's a large effort ongoing now, and what I find interesting and found interesting is how the issue is being broached. And for me, there were some references or similarities between the thoughts I had in Iceland and what I saw ongoing in Saudi. And I wanted sort of to maybe share a few things and a few thoughts today, just to see if that can be some sort of input or inspiration for your future discussion for the wool crafts in the North Atlantic region. Now, if we start by a few definitions. Now, cultural tourism is sometimes called the original form of tourism, because when people were taking the grand tour in the 17th and 18th centuries, they went between places and sort of tried to observe what was happening around them, especially with a focus on culture and history. Now, general definitions of cultural tourism, they of course address the understanding and familiarity with the way of life and history of a specific location. And they also define the cultural factors that are presented in the context of tourism. And these factors are, of course, many, and among them are the handicrafts and manufactured products that tourists or visitors want to take with them as memorabilia, and also every element representing characteristics of way of life in a particular destination, and that is also, of course, from a historical standpoint. Now, also another concept that has been growing in the past years is experiential travel. And it is very much related to cultural tourism because it is defined as a form of tourism in which people focus on experiencing a country, city, or particular place by actively and meaningfully engaging with its history, people, culture, food, and environment. This is also sometimes called immersive travel. And then the question arises, what are people immersing themselves in? There has been a growing trend within both the sectors of luxury travel and adventure travel towards this. Just before COVID hit, people were, of course, they had the data to try to discern what actually the trends were. We're sort of swimming in in a very murky pond now as tourism starts again after the pandemic. But within luxury tourism, there was this strive towards deeper and what they called authentic experiences, culinary experiences, transformational travel. I'm taking up some keywords from here, allowing travelers to align with the community that they are visiting. And there was a growing sensitivity towards ethical and environmental standards where people expressed a wish to sort of maybe give something back to the resources or communities that they were visiting. Now, adventure tourism at the same time was becoming more culturally immersed also, with custom itineraries, looking for remote destinations where you could meet people that had different experiences from yourself, expert and specialist guided trips. And that is not only things like rock climbing or paragliding, but also cultural trips and long overseas travel, which then relates to the immersive travel aspect. So culture, impact, experience, transformation, and wellness were all becoming keywords, and all of them were looking into the cultures that they were visiting for inspiration and for product development, because at the end of the day, tourism is, of course, a product that is sold to the consumer, if we're very callous about it. And then we go to the concept of authenticity, because authenticity is a bit of a complicated word, because in reality, nobody really wants to visit and just live my daily life as an Icelandic citizen who just goes home and boils haddock and potatoes for the kids while trying to recite their homework with them. So is authenticity in the eye of the beholder, as some people have defined? They define authenticity as what exactly you experience. If you feel that you are having an authentic experience, then it is then authentic. That's a bit of a postmodern way of looking at things, but it still raises the question of, do we define authenticity from the perspective of the observer or the consumer in this case, or the insider, that is the provider of and the resource for the cultural or the experience that people are then buying into? And that also then raises the question, are visitors seeking real authenticity and cultural immersion, or does the very fact of tourism rule out the possibility of authentic cultural experience, as expressed in a not very recent paper, but I think that the question still remains, especially today, not least today. Now, innovation in cultural tourism, that also goes towards the heritage, because if we're looking at cultural heritage, as I say, the way things have been done, the way trying to look into the daily lives of people through traditional handicrafts, through traditional ways of producing, or etc. How can innovation be a part of that? Because in itself, that is a preservation discussion. And then that raises the question, how we define cultural sustainability. Do we define it as something static? That is, we are preserving a moment in time, we are preserving things as is, or do we define it as fluid? And this sort of relates to, interestingly, to developments in biology, where the conservation discussion has moved from the preservation of static areas, that is, preserving an area as it is, to preserving an ecosystem with all the fluidity and the evolution and change and diversification that happens within an ecosystem. So are we preserving change, or are we preserving a picture or a tableau? And if we are preserving either of these things, or even if we look at the static preservation, when does authenticity then become staged, and even staged through innovation, technical innovation, or through new ways of presenting things? And when does that become a true threat to local culture? Because it stops being authentic, it stops being something that residents can relate to, and becomes a production in itself. And all of these things, I think, are important questions when we're looking towards cultural tourism, because they also go into the relationship between a visitor and a host, and that reciprocal relationship and the changing roles that people play. Because sometimes when you're a traveler, you're a visitor, and then when you're at home, you're a host. And we need to find a way to sort of make these things all work in order to preserve the societal sustainability that we also want to keep intact. Now, showing you a few pictures from Saudi Arabia and returning to the question of handicrafts, which I know absolutely nothing about. Some of the things I experienced there were interesting, and many of them raised the questions of staged authenticity, of whether visitors would be seeking real authenticity, the real insights into the daily lives of people, often not very affluent, in rural areas of Saudi Arabia, and whether their perspective on what is real and heritage is the same as what the interests of local residents is. If you look towards the left-hand corner, you see the circular, it's not, I think, knitted, it's crocheted, but as you see, I'm very, very reluctant to use any of the handicraft concepts because I truly really suck at all of that. But you can see the colors, and I was told, and I asked very many times, that the yarn that is used for the crocheting or knitting or what have you is all imported. So Saudi Arabia is an arid country, and as in many other arid countries or countries where it's difficult to grow a lot of fodder or feed for animals, there's a lot of sheep and a lot of goats, and hence one might think that there's a lot of sources for wool. However, the materials for their handicrafts are imported, and that sort of relates to what we were seeing in the video, because if wool in a rural, perhaps fairly poor area has no value anymore because it's all imported, and that is maybe more exciting for people who are opening a window to the outside, as we all know maybe from our own history, how can we raise awareness, know-how, and the will to start working with the local ingredients again? The middle photo shows how people dry their goat skins. They sort of throw them over an acacia tree and wait for them to dry. I don't actually know whether they're used in any other way than to sort of provide insulation for huts and for Bedouin sort of camps. In the uppermost right corner, you see a staged event in the town of Al-Ula when they had a season for visitors, and they set up quite a lot of events that were sort of taking from the musical and creative heritage of the area, but was, however, of course, produced to be attractive to visitors from all over the world. We see another sort of a leather thingy that I never got to know really how it was used in the bottom left corner, but it's sort of some sort of shield for the camel on its long journeys overland. And in the middle, in the bottom, you can see a typical desert breakfast with all the plastic and all the materials that are used. And that again raises the question. This is an authentic desert breakfast that I was lucky to be invited to, because Saudis are generous and hospitable to a fault. And I had so many great experiences there. But these were the way that they like to present things, with a lot of plastics that more often than not became litter in the desert. And that is also a question of how do we want to present those things? Because the food was excellent, but it was, perhaps not presented in a way that would be interesting to us. And in the bottom right-hand corner, we see sort of the hands of a man who is showing me how to use a traditional key lock. And we will see a bit more of that later. Now, this is an artifact that I bought from an old lady who has been crocheting for a long time. As you can see, the colors are not very natural from this. There's not a lot of vegetation. I don't know how they have traditionally dyed their materials, but they do have ways of that. And I was trying to learn a bit about them, but all of this was imported. And the yarn and the colors, this is what people liked. This was a new way. It wasn't mired in the history of the area, because sometimes when you have a new community or people that are sort of working towards a future and working towards opening doors to the outdoor world, unfortunately, you could see this in Beijing before the Olympics in 2008. You can see this in the history of Iceland and probably in the history of the other North Atlantic areas, that people sort of tend to look upon their own cultural heritage as something not so interesting, not so sophisticated, and not anything that anybody will be interested in. And they want to adapt newfangled methods. And sometimes when there's enough money, you get other designs from outside, such as this needlepoint pillowcase, which was given to me by a friend was part of a needlepoint society in Umluj, down by the Red Sea coastline. As you can see, none of the materials there are in any way anything that you relate with Saudi Arabia. The blue faux silk or chiffon or what it is, the material in the pillow, and the white lace is all imported. The motif is a flower that does not bloom in the Middle East. And this is a place of spectacular beauty, spectacular landscapes, mountains, and often, and in the wet season, beautiful plants that are really, really beautiful to watch and could provide such beautiful motifs for any needlepoint. But this is what they were striving to do in the group of handicraft women that was producing this. However, going to the Riyadh Souk, which was then producing and selling wares to the affluent expats that work in Riyadh. There are lots of expats working in Riyadh in very many industries, and they sold these beautiful camel wool comforters with a pattern that related a lot to what you sort of think about when you think about the desert sands of Saudi Arabia, and you could see them often in the rocky deserts and in the landscapes there. The colors are sort of what you think about is authentically Saudi Arabian or Middle Eastern, and the material is obviously camel. However, probably or possibly, well, a lot of effort has also been put into in Saudi Arabia to get outside designers, even from the large fashion houses like Hermes or Chanel, to come into these areas and provide motifs to create something that is then sellable to the affluent visitors that people are sort of striving or marketing the destinations to. And that then raises the questions, if we have an area which is struggling to remember the ways that how things were done, be it house building, be it the Bedouin lifestyle, be it the history and songs and stories and myths that were there, is it the correct right step to get an outside designer to help you so that you maybe learn just to produce one thing? As I know that one sort of NGO, which is owned or organized by Prince Charles, they work in the way that they go into areas and teach them how to make one product, and then they make that product. It's a beautiful product, and it's built on the cultural heritage and characteristics of the area, but they don't go into very many big depths to teach from the bottom up the old ways or the ways that things were, or even handicrafts or know-how, these just raise these questions for me that I found really important sort of to answer whenever you're working on building up a culture or offer. And as I could talk about this endlessly for many hours and days and tire everybody out, but I just wanted to end with this last slide, which shows sort of a collage from a heritage museum in Al-Ula. As I told you, that from 1979, not a lot of attention was focused on anything relating to cultural heritage, history, art, or handicrafts, because they were working their way towards becoming a technological and more modern society. And in 100 years, they had gone a very, very long way towards doing that. But that often means that they disregard their history as something that is passé. And B, there just wasn't a lot of interest from the ruling fractions there in preserving anything relating to art. So, but here you can see different things. I don't know if you can see my pointer. Here is an original, perhaps, pillow that people were sitting on, or the ladies were sitting on, which is sort of the same type as the one now made from foreign materials with foreign motifs. You can see the knitting here in the bottom corner and the sort of the way that it's decorated. I don't even know what this is called in English. I had to have this picture from participating in the coffee ceremonies, which are a wonderful, wonderful cultural heritage thing. That is really, if you ever go to the Middle East, I would encourage you to try that out, because it sort of tells the whole history of how men went through sort of discussions and arguments, instead of just running around and shooting each other. They used to have a coffee ceremony just to through play acting, going through how angry people were. Here you can see a lot of produced products made from the innards of sheep and goats. They were used to keep water on long travels and also to store things and preserve from the sun. And in the bottommost corner, you can see these locks I was referring to. And all of these things are truly authentic, and they have been collected by private citizens who just collected everything. Because as you can also see in the corner of the Majid, which is, a Majid is the place where people meet to discuss and visit. You can also see this collection of TVs and radios, because that was also something that was important for the communities around Saudi Arabia. That is, when modernity came to Saudi Arabia, because that meant something for them also, as sort of making up their own identity, because identity comes from the outside, and identity is often something that is designed consciously or unconsciously. So I think that the question that I think that everybody who's working with handicrafts needs to think about is, how will we design that? Will we design it from something that comes from our perspective as hosts, or from our perspective when we go to places to visit, buy, and consume? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ólöf. My mind is full of questions and thoughts now, and I'm sure that you all agree with that. And I think it was a really good way to start today, to raise a lot of questions in our minds, and exactly about the authenticity, this word I cannot use, but yeah, at least thank you, Ólöf, and it was really, really good input today. Next up is Karin Sissal Kristiansen from the Faroe Island. She is really passionate about Faroese wool, and some even say that she is the Faroese wool activist. Sissal has a master in business and marketing, but quit her regular job in 2012 to start Sissal brand. She is in the business of slow fashion and doesn't mind if the growth of the company is slow, as long as it stays true to her story, beliefs, and the essence of the Sissal brand, which is very much about sustainability, the Faroe Island, the knitting culture, and the Faroese wool. Her newest big project is the film, The Wool Islands, which is made because of her love of Faroese wool. Sissal, we are really excited to hear your woolen love story.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, first I have to find my presentation, which is here. Can you hear me? Yeah. So first of all, I need to introduce my why I find this topic so interesting. It is because I have the brand Sissal brand, which is my big passion, and the core of Sissal brand is wool and Faroese wool and knitting. For many people, so yeah, this is so Sissal brand. I do mainly use 100% Faroese undyed Faroese wool, and it is hand knitted on the Faroe Islands. For many people, it might seem that all Faroese people have sheep, but we don't all have sheep, but we all know someone who does. And I find that with that, it is strange how we don't respect the wool more than we do, because if we respect our neighbors, we should respect our neighbors' sheep, as it is something that our neighbors love. And I also find that when we have something, if we know the source, it should be easier to take care of it. And for us, that will be the Faroese wool. Every year in summertime, the sheep on the Faroe Islands are shorn, and the wool is given to the Brunárstofan, the wool collection on the Faroe Islands, where they divide and separate the wool. There are approximately 70 tons of wool shorn each year, but only 20 to 30 tons of those are brought to the wool terminal. The rest is burnt. Out of those, at the wool terminal, they separate the wool. So they have like these three criteria. So it's first and second class, and then a trash, if we could say so. The wool is divided into 5 colors plus 1. There's a dark brown, a light gray, and a dark gray, and a white. And then there's this mixed color. This wool, the interesting part for me is that this wool is then made into yarn. And each year the color will depend on what wool was collected this year. So for me, who uses a lot of dark brown, this year's dark brown has a hint of gray in it, whereas last year's dark brown was more solid dark brown color. So for me, it also affects the design of the things that I produce. But again, it's more fun that it is. It makes the story better that we have this mixture. So. Out of those 20 to 30 tons of wool that is delivered at the wool terminal, 15 to 16, it will be sold in 15 to 16 ton netto wool, which then is sold to producers, yarn producers, and other people, who then will make yarn. We have in the Faroe Islands, we have like 3 big yarn companies, but only 3 yarns are 100% Faroese wool. A lot of them they have a lot of yarns that are mixed yarns, Faroese wool mixed with other wool. And then we have some new micro yarn producers in Kristiansen, and I have a feeling that they're becoming more of these micro yarn producers. Anyway. As I said, we all, it seems like we all know someone who has sheep, or we all do know someone who has sheep, but we don't all have sheep. That is the same with knitting. We don't all knit, but a lot of us do knit, and we all know someone who knits. But somehow, even though we are such avid knitters, there's a lot of people who don't use the Faroese wool, and that is one of the reasons why it still is getting burnt. But we don't. So a lot of people knit with foreign wool, and nothing against foreign wool. It's just that it's not local. It's not from our neighbor's sheep, so to speak. And that is one thing that I find is sad, because I think. The reason why we have this problem with the burnt wool is because we as local people, as Faroese people, don't appreciate the wool enough. I have this, as I said, I have this brand, and with that I have a shop. And in the shop, I can see that tourists are asking more and more about traditional Faroese knitwear and yarn and made with Faroese wool. But it is in a way, I feel it's mostly the Faroese people who are the biggest problem. So somehow, what to do with this? I felt that I last year, in January last year, I realized that I wanted to do something about this, and somehow awaken the love and interest anew amongst the Faroese people for the Faroese wool, and but I needed a different approach, a different story. So listen to this.
The starting point for the sweater was my father's Sima sweater. I explore it.
Sissal, you're not sharing your screen.
What?
No.
Am I just all the time? Have you not seen anything?
No.
That's not true. Oh.
No.
Okay, let's try again. Can you see something now? This
yes.
worked earlier.
Yeah. No, I see it. Okay.
You can see it now?
Yeah.
Okay. then all the great photos that I showed you of all the cute sheep, I almost need to show you. This is my favorite photo, this one, of my neighbor's sheep. This is the picture of a neighbor sheep. So these are the things that I wanted to show you, how the wool is separated. This is from the separation at the wool terminal, and from the snaldan where they were spinning the wool, the Faroese wool in this factory, and then the 3 different brands of Faroese wool that we have, and now this is the cute sheep that is the intro to my awakening process here. So I'll show you a video now, and I'll hope you will hear this now.
The starting point for the sweater was my father's Sima sweater. I explored it and started to scrape off from many patterns to one pattern, from many color to 2 color, from a high neck to a crown neck. And then I changed the sleeves to raglan sleeves, all to make it more feminine. I really wanted to make the sweater suitable for the urban woman.
And this is the whole essence of my project. Gurun, as you can see here from Gurun and Gurun, she tells about how they changed the perception of the traditional seaman sweater and how they changed it and made it more feminine and more adaptable for the urban woman, as she says. And this is now a sweater that you can mix with a dress instead of only using it when going fishing. So this was in a way this is the inspiration for the approach for the film that I was going for. So the idea is that we wanted less waste, but to get this less waste, we needed to have a greater understanding and appreciation for the Faroese sheep and the wool, and somehow also tell the story, get us to re-love the Faroese culture and historical importance of wool and knitting in the Faroe Islands, and then introduce knitwear brands. So the idea was to mix these 3 things together somehow, and with that, hopefully spark some affection and innovation and increased demand, and that would go into the circle to the less waste. And for tourism, the tourism's part of it, the increased knowledge of the cultural and historical aspect would be something that the Faroe Islands could use to make the Faroe Islands more attractive as a place to visit in case you are a wool lover or a knitwear lover. So it started, as I said, the idea came to me in January. In February last year, I had started to outline the idea and the story and try to get funding, get people on my team. I needed to convince my competitors that they should let me do something about them and tell the story, their story and the story of the wool. I had to find some professionals, film professionals, experts, and then make future plans, and still have my day job. So as you can see, I'm quite happy here, and this is the first day of filming. We started by filming an artist, and then the kept rolling.
The Wool Islands is a celebration of wool and knitting in the Faroe Islands. These 5 people celebrate their Faroese heritage with their passion for wool and knitting. In their own different ways, they have devoted their professional lives to this passion.
So the film was to introduce these 3 angles, as I said: the historical, the sheep, and the knitwear. And also I felt that a film in its own is good, but this has to be a project that it has to keep adding on this project. So podcasts are one part of the idea. Some of these podcasts most of the podcasts will be in Faroese. It will be it will be to tell the story about the sheep, to somehow get young people and people who don't have sheep to understand the life of the sheep, and also learn more about the different qualities of the Faroese wool, and why the wool is so suitable for the Faroese people, as Dorothea said in the beginning, why it is perfect for us in these better conditions to use our local wool. And then there's a website which right now is quite empty. It doesn't have that much. It's only an introduction, like a business card, more or less. But with time, things will be added on so that you'll both learn about the Faroe Islands, about the brands, and about our wool and knitting traditions. So this is the hope that people who are curious about the Faroe Islands or about Faroese wool will find something more here. And hopefully it will also be something that keeps on adding and getting more and more value. Everything okay, Sandra? Yeah?
Yep.
Good. And again, as I said, this is also a gateway into the Faroe Islands. The Faroe Islands have many things, we think, to sell, and we are in many ways attractive and interesting as a destination. But we also have, but it is mostly the cultural story that gives the visit a substance. We need more than just beautiful scenery, and we need something to. We need to tell why people live here and why how they fill up their lives, how they make their days great, so to speak. And sheep farming is really something that a lot of people spend a lot of time with doing, and with that we are hoping, or I am hoping, that the Wool Islands is adding to the value of the Faroe Islands as a destination. So 4 brands are here, and then my brand as well, and a great team of film team with a different view and a different angle. Most films, promotional films made about the Faroe Islands, are made by men, and nothing against men, but they have a different approach to film. It's more grandiose. It's more like filming with helicopters, etc. Whereas our team of Beinta and Mariana, who have a more aesthetically female aesthetic view, the film, it became different. So. And then also to make the story believable and to make it something that people would want to invest in, the interest, I had to have some specialists, and these are from both the museums people, and these people helped me tell the story, because I didn't know all these things. We also had a farmer.
The Faroe sheep is living wild, more or less, but not that wild that it comes and visits us a few times during the wintertime to seek for feed. Most of the herds are living in the mountains, and they're grassing in the mountains. And when there's too much snow, we as humans take care of them and provide them with necessary feed.
So the idea with the farmer is to have him introduce us to the sheep, so that we can see that the wool is actually a natural resource. It's something that comes from our neighborhoods or our mountains. So that's why, and have people care for the sheep to see that they do live, they do have a free and very good life in the mountains in the Faroe Islands. And that was the reason why it's so important to have the sheep themselves be part of the film. A third thing, as I said, fashion is something that some people find great interest in, but mostly it's the wool is used for clothing most of the time. So showing how from the sheep to a fashion statement was very much a way to get interest from one part of the target group. So and this will be the last slide that I'm coming here. So yeah, that was a short, hopefully interesting introduction to the Wool Islands. You can see the full documentary on thewoolislands.com and see more about that. And please ask if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Sissal. This has been really inspiring. And I think all countries with wool should have at least one like you. So passionate and willing to take this project on and give it the attention and care wool needs. So great job.
Thank you.
And thank you for sharing with us. Next in line was Karin Flatøy Svarstad from Norway, but she is unfortunately not with us today due to COVID illness. But I'm sure that we will hear more about her interesting project, Ull-Dorado, in the future. The project Ull-Dorado is about changing worthless wool that otherwise would be burned, into a fertilizer that can be used by farmers and gardeners. And it's a really exciting project. And if you are interested to know more, you could check out the web page, Ull-Dorado.com. I will write the name of I will write the link in the chat later on. So next up is Brynjar Þór Vigfússon. He is the co-owner of the Gilhagi wool mill in the northeast of Iceland. Brynjar and Guðrún Lilja, his wife, moved to Brynjar's family's farm in Gilhagi 4 years ago with their 3 children and a vision of a good life in the countryside. And they have made their dream come true with hard work and innovative thinking. Now, few years later, they have started a mini mill and their business is growing fast. Their farming has also taken off with all kinds of animals and a lot of tourists visiting the farm to learn about their daily farm life. Now we will hear a story about learning as you go and creating the life you want to live. Brynjar Þór, please tell us your story.
Hi. I'm going to find the screen. Can you see the screen?
We can see it. Yes.
You see it? Okay. Fantastic to be with you here today. I loved the speakers before and looking forward to the others. I would like to start to thank Svanhildi and the Textilecenter for this wonderful event. These are our ducks. We keep ducks along with sheep, goats, honeybees, chickens, horses, and our lovely dog, Kappi. My name is Brynjar, and I am the co-founder of Ullavinnslan Gilhagi wool mill, along with my wife, Guðrún Lilja Dam. Today, I will ramble a bit about our farm and our wool adventure, why we started our business and how we got to the place we are on today, and what we have done, and probably a bit about what's ahead. As I said, I am Brynjar Þór, and my wife named me Guðrún Lilja Dam. I am a master carpenter and furniture maker by trade. Guðrún Lilja studied sociology, carpentry, where we met, and lately business and accounting. We have various jobs experience, which all helps in the everyday mission. I am from Húsavík and Guðrún from Vík í Mýrdal. We have 3 wonderful children. We moved and bought the Gilhagi farm in 2018 after a few stops here and there, Norway, Vík í Mýrdal, and Húsavík. We have both interest in nature and animal, origin of things, architecture, storytelling, and the art of drinking much coffee and tea. We are located in northeast Iceland, about 13 kilometers away from Ásbyrgi Canyon. We are in a good agriculture region that mainly focuses on sheep breeding. Hopefully in the future, we can set up, among others, a good circle of agricultural attraction in our region. There are various tourist attractions around us, like Ásbyrgi Canyon, Dettifoss waterfall, Arctic Hens in Raufarhöfn, and we also are short distance from both Húsavík and Mývatn with their attraction. Gilhagi farm is located in a valley about 5 kilometers up from the main road. The name can be translated as a valley grazing area. Our Gilhagi became a farm when the old farm Gilhagi was formed into 2 farms divided to 2 siblings. Gilhagi farm has housing for around 300 sheep. Today we have almost 100 sheep and 13 goats. We have been steadily adding on sheep and goats in the recent years. At the moment, our goal is 150 sheep and 13 goats. We keep a multicolor herd, mainly to fill our wool mill's need of various colors. Gilhagi has about 13 acres of planted forest. Around our farmhouse, we have more planted woodlands with various trees, where the focus of my grandfather and grandmother was to make a peacefully and interesting place of pleasure. They were both enthusiastic planters. My grandmother studied ornamental park design in her homeland, Norway, where they met, my grandfather and her, when he went to Norway to study forestry. When we moved to Húsavík in 2014, we started studying beekeeping, and in 2015 we got 2 beehives which we set up in Gilhagi. Since then we have had our ups and downs with the beekeeping and have lost weight to many during the winter, but always kept on. And keeping bees in the Arctic North will always probably be the most challenging job on the farm. When we moved to Gilhagi, we bought 13 sheep, adding to the 15 already on the farm. Then we got our dog Kappi, few chicken, and then slowly others came along. Kappi is the one who goes fully on in everything we do. When we got our sheep, he did not hesitate helping with them. When we started the wool mill, he learned the trick of making every stick a playable toy, no matter how long or small it is. When we got our first chicks and ducklings, he stayed and watched them all day long. Then he taught them how to move on the farm. When first visitors came to our wool mill, he learned that he could have more throwers for his collection of sticks and balls. He can be seen waiting and listening after visitors driving up the road, eager to play. A friendly and more loving dog is hard to find for our farm. He loves his jobs, taking care of everyone on the farm. He is a herder by nature. He herds everything he can get his paws on: sheep, goats, chicken, ducks, cat, and horses. Although most of them don't like his herding them, they play along. Where does the idea of our wool mill come from? There was a project in our region of putting up a wool mill for local wool. At the time, the group around the project advertised after interested people to take over the project. We took the chance and started thinking of ways to put up a mill. Long story short, we was able to finance the project and make up a doable concept. We also had to learn about wool, yarn, and putting up a business, but that came easily when we started. In early 2019, we set up a crowdfunding campaign, and in March 2020, machines arrived from Belfast Mini Mill in Canada. In June 2020, we opened our doors for visitors. Since then, we have been on a steady move to a full production in the mill. Starting a business that does demand introduction to people, both getting visitors to farm and making appearance on a farmer's market or etc., has been a bit challenging in a world pandemic, but it has taught us how to be visualized in social media and creating content. Our wool business idea is simple. Local wool straight from high quality farmers with high quality wool fibers in natural colors spun into quality yarn that fits most knitters for their knitting patterns. Why the name Gilhagi? It's basically because of the farm is named Gilhagi. Why wool mill or ullavinnsla? Because we are a wool mill or ullavinnsla. Our target market is hand knitters, crocheters, weavers, machine knitters, or wool lovers of all kinds. We have been making yarn for weaving and are currently on the phase of making machine knittable yarn for a variety of sweaters we want to produce. We do sell at our little farm shop and web shop, but also we are available at a few great yarn stores in Iceland. Our vision is to process local wool locally, giving farmers their fair value for their high quality wool, using the beautiful color variations of the Icelandic sheep spun into beautiful yarn. We do buy yarn from wool from around 15 farmers in our region. The longest transport is around 90 kilometers to the mill. We can have the wool traceable to farms and individual sheep. And we have been spinning for customers who want yarn made out of sheep from each individual farm or a farmer. The wool price is low, though wool quality is high. And we want to make our mark in getting farmer fairer price. So we want to get everyone valuing the wool as it should be valued. We do not dye our yarn. We want to make the natural color straight from off the sheep. Fleeces of sheep like brown badgerface or black mawflawn are valued less in a bigger wool mill. With smaller mill like ours, we can take like 1 to 3 fleeces and make most beautiful yarn for few sweaters. We do take 1 fleece from each sheep and make small batch of that sheep, but we do also replicate what we can in making a similar yarn from each sheep. There are obviously challenges, but mostly opportunities for a farm and mill like ours. For us, leaving our safe life in a steady job in the city, moving to a farm and putting everything aside to make a dream come true is challenging. But with good help, patience, focus, and hard work, you can look at everything as an opportunity. We thought when we opened up the mill that we could have a steady job with regular hours, but we have found that there is no 6 to 8 hours job on the mill. So we have been taking long hours, long days, long night, just to keep up with the demand of wool. And hopefully we are adding more persons in our mill to help us. Most challenging thing about the color variation is that some colors have only one sheep to 400 to 800 white sheeps. So we have to blend wool to replicate colors. Like brown badgerface is our most bought color, but we have probably one brown badgerface to around 600 white sheeps. Advertising yarn through website is not the same as selling it in a yarn store, so we had to find innovative ways to sell our yarn, and I think we have gotten quite good at that. The best way to sell yarn is to post pictures of ducklings trying to swim. That has sold quite a few sweaters for us. Our wool mill is located beside our farmhouse in our old workshop. We gutted the building and restored it to our vision in 8 months. Since late 2019, I have been working full-time running the mill and the farm with all its various job titles. Guðrún has been working partly over the winter months out of the farm. We need to be 2-person running the mill since we have to have all the machines working in harmony. 2 persons is required to keep the mill running, but with farm shop, web shop, and advertising requires more labor, meaning more jobs in a rural community. Since we cannot have wool imported to our region, we do not spin much for other farmers, only farmers in our region. We only buy wool from farmers in our region. Located between 2 glacier rivers, wool cannot be imported to our region due to the prevention of scrapie and other sheep diseases. We buy wool in all colors and variation, both pure and mixed colors. We mix colors to make colors we can't fulfill due to the lack in quantity. We buy wool from both ewes and lamb's wool, but we also spin from leader sheep for the Leader Sheep Museum in Þistilfjörður, which is marked red. The circle is our area. We have a good supply of wool from farmers in our region. Although we want much more of most color variation, we still need to blend wool fibers to fulfill customers' need. A bit or black fibers into a white fleece creates the most astonishing colors. Our yarn is made from ewes and lamb's wool in natural colors suitable for most knitting projects. The wonderful double-coated Icelandic wool is known for its quality and properties. We strive to bring those properties and quality into the yarn and to the complete knitting project. Many of our visitors come to get a complete sweater or a hat. We have a good knitting assistant to help us stock up a few hand-knitted sweaters. In the future, we will need to add machine-knitted sweaters to keep up with the rising demand. At the moment, we have 2 yarn weights suitable for most knitting projects: sweater, vests, shawl, mittens, and socks. We do call our yarn after its wool origin, so Ýrr, which means ewe's wool, and lamb is from lamb's wool. Ýrr is from ewe's wool and is our most bought yarn. Soft, strong, and warm, can be used in most sweater patterns. It is spun in a lofty twist, leaving it strong and warm. It is in worsted weight or aran weight, which depends on how you call the yarn. Lambs are sheared in October when they are housed for the winter. Dual coat fibers keeps them warm in the ever-changing Icelandic weather. Lamb's wool is softer than ewe's. making it more suitable for sensitive person and finer projects. Naglasúpa is our most fun spinning activity. There we play with color and make funny yarn colors. We like playing with the challenge of trying to replicate individual sheep colors at our farm. For example, brown and white spotted sheep. Naglasúpa is an Icelandic soup you make from what's available in the refrigerator at the moment. Our special color range represent the mixed color in Icelandic sheep breed. Also, whatever we feel at the moment of processing. We make naglasúpa in both use and lambswool yarn. They make the most specular color range for both main and pattern color. Visitors are a big part of our mill. Although tourists have been quite few in the recent years, we had a good amount coming to our mill in the summertime. We do get very different variety of groups to us, small knitting groups, work colleagues, family gatherings, and etc. Tailor-made tour for your group can easily be managed. During summer, it is magical to sit outside while the rooster sings his song, ducklings learn to swim, bees humming from one flower to another, and a cup of tea does not ruin that moment. We have our farm shop open every day. We are at home every day, so why not have open every day? We do sell coffee and beverages and will be having something more this summer. So you can sit down and enjoy the nature and stillness, walk around the forestry, sit down in a lovely, lovely quiet place and let the nature surround you. You may meet the goats walking around. They do not accept that we put up fencing for them. So they do find a way through the fence and make their own way. But Kappi does try his best to keep them in place. When visiting Gilhagi, you can get the factory tour. We love sharing our knowledge of wool and also learn from visitors with their experience of wool. We do get visitors all year round, interested in wool and the process. We have been getting visitors every month since we opened up the mill and can expect guests every day. We love our surroundings in the winter. We get covered in snow. In summer, we get all weather conditions, but mostly sun. You have to experience it by yourself. Best way is to come often. It is more likely that you will come back to get the idea of how it is in the rain or how it is in the winter. But there, in winter, there's always the chance that you get stuck in the snow, but that's an adventure on its own. Since we are a working farm, our animals can be seen. We do not put them on display. We are not a zoo. And when driving up to us, you will probably see few sheep or horses, and you have to respect their way on the road. Our chicken and ducks are free range and wander around. Here you can find our info and where to find us and keep in touch. I would like to thank you for your time. If you have any question, ideas, or planning on visiting us, don't hesitate to contact. I'm looking forward to the next speakers, and hopefully we can all be in touch later for something fun and innovative in the wool sector. In this video, you can see our herd from last autumn. We do keep a multicolor herd just for the wool, since the wool is exceptionally beautiful and dynamic in its natural color. And Kappi runs there in the back. Thank you.
Thank you, Brynjar. What a nice place you have there. I think you will get us all for a visit. I think this might be a dream place for all wool lovers and yarn lovers and knitters in the world. I allow me to say so. And I think this is something that we are aiming for with this project of ours, Wool Walks and Workshops, to see more places like that. Thank you very much, Brynjar. Our next speaker is Mia Clements. She is no stranger to making natural product work in innovative ways to keep people beautiful and warm, while also strengthening Greenlandic culture both at home and throughout the world. Her work with wool, muskox wool, that is, has its root in a family tradition that goes back to the late 90s, when her mother first started spinning muskox yarn, and then to 2008, when her mother opened the shop Kvikut. I got some lesson this morning in how to pronounce this word, but I'm afraid I need more practice. In Sissimut, Greenland, on the Arctic Circle. The company is known for its products made in Greenland with local Greenlandic materials and by local hands. Mia is trained tailor and designer, and she has spearheaded a cultural revival of Inuit clothing patterns, as well as has designed a collaborative line made for hardworking people in the Arctic. Without further ado, Mia, please tell us what you're doing.
Thank you, Svana, for that introduction. Gives quite a pressure, I think. Yes, we are a company called Revud, which is the Inuit word for the muskox wool. So Inuit in Greenland and Canada, Alaska, parts of Siberia will all be using Revud, the word Revud for the muskox wool. And I don't think that my mother thought that we would become a big international brand when she thought of this name, because obviously a lot of people have problems pronouncing it. But the whole thing started, I think 22 years ago, when the hunt for muskoxen began in our part of Greenland. So the muskox is not native to our part of Greenland. So although we have very strong Inuit traditions that when you hunt an animal, when you put an animal down, the tradition is that you show respect for the animal by using the whole animal. So you use the meat, obviously, for eating, for feeding your dogs. You use the skin, which is very obvious with seals and reindeer. They've been keeping Inuit warm for thousands of years. You use the bones, you use the claws, you use everything from the animal. But because the muskox wasn't native to our part of Greenland, we didn't really know what to do with them when the hunt began. So the hunters had to start out by figuring out, okay, how do we even put this animal down? Where do you shoot it? What kind of caliber of rifle do you need to use to make sure that the animal stays down? It's a big animal. If you shoot it in the forehead, the bullet comes back. If you shoot it in the shoulder, the bullet comes back. But they figured out how to actually put them down, and very quickly everyone realized that the meat is very tasty. I think everyone likes muskox meat, but the rest of the animal wasn't used. So for the first, I think 2 or 3 seasons of hunt, the hides of the animals were just burned. The skin was burned. And this went so much against the tradition of the people, and my mother set out to kind of figure out, okay, how can we use this hide? We must be able to use it for something, maybe for leather, I don't know. So she started studying what are the qualities of the hides? Could we use exactly for leather, or and then she found out that the muskox wool is quite unique. It has some unique qualities. I usually don't brag about muskox wool when I'm in the company of sheep wool people, because it feels like I'm pulling sheep wool down. I'm not, I'm just pulling muskox wool up. It's measured to be 8 times warmer than sheep's wool. It doesn't have some of the same triggers towards allergies as other wools do. So in a lot of ways, it just has some very unique qualities. And so she started with a small production, and it's just been growing and growing. And for her and for us, it's always been very important to stay local, stay sustainable. So I always say that no one is going to have to shoot a muskox so that I can knit a hat. So we are very involved in the politics about setting the quotas for how many animals to regulate and stuff like that. And yeah, so the company has grown over the last almost 15 years, but we have kept all materials, all raw materials are local. Our production is local, our staff are local. And we are very proud of this. We have been offered many times to move the production out of the country, or been told by advisors that we could make a lot more money if we would just, you know, not stay local. We have, of course, a lot of visitors, tourists coming to Greenland. And if they come from the US or if they come from Canada, some parts of these two countries, they know the muskox wool from home, and they think that we are super cheap here. Although we would say that it's a high-end brand, it's a expensive product that we have in our stores. But we try to regulate our prices so that, of course, we can eat, we can live, but we still want to, you know, it's very important for us, this part of kind of being local, is not only the production, but also that the locals are very proud of our brand. So I don't think that you can meet a lot of Greenlandic people that don't own something from us. It's a place where if you have foreign visitors, you want to show them our story, you want to tell them our story. And it's been very important for us not to actually follow the world prices on our products, but to kind of keep it in a middle where, of course, it is an exclusive product, but we want the locals to actually be able to wear our product. So, and I think that kind of keeping that in mind and prioritizing, not only kind of attracting visitors to our brand, but really staying in the local society and prioritizing our local customers is why that even though we haven't had tourists in the country for almost 2 years now due to COVID, that we have been growing. The company has been growing, even though kind of, maybe you could say half our customers have not been able to reach us because the Greenlandic people have prioritized in their economy that a brand like ours should be supported during COVID. So we're very thankful about that. And also we have grown into being, I don't know, I don't have numbers, but I've been told by officials that we are the biggest export Greenland has besides fish, shrimps, anything from the sea. So that's pretty cool, I think. I want to go back to the first talk that was with Ólöf, and she was speaking a lot about this authentic experience, and I was very inspired by that because that has been something that, you know, we've always prioritized, that we are not like, we're not a museum. We are not, I think Greenland has a tendency of being kind of a very beautiful, idyllic museum kind of picture. And we are just very dedicated to being authentic. I don't make anything special for a tourist. I make something special for my neighbors, and then maybe the tourist will like it. Maybe they won't, I don't mind. And of course, we're very privileged to be able to say that, but I think that we have grown fairly big and strong because we have so much respect for our material. Material is always, like you said in the beginning, ull at gull, and we call the muskox wool the Arctic gold. It's even priced after how much, like a scarf is priced after how much it weighs. So yeah, I agree with that. I don't know, I think that also part of why we are often used as a kind of a branding tool also for the whole of Greenland is that we are a good story. We are sustainable. We have this local brand, big success. Greenland usually never is the biggest producer of anything or the world record holder for anything, but we are, in this case, the best in the world at what we are doing. And I think a lot of locals, Greenlandic people, are very proud of our brand. I don't know what to add to it. Usually people ask me a lot of questions. I don't know. I think that maybe some of the things that kind of separates Greenland from the rest of the countries that we are speaking to today and hearing from is that we don't have a tradition of knitting. We don't have a tradition of wool. But I think that we have been part of kind of a wool revolution in Greenland. Suddenly everyone knits, like in the rest of the world, it's very high fashion. I just saw a question.
Yes,
about...
I can ask you some questions from the audience.
Okay.
Is your yarn hand spun? How do you spin your yarn?
Some people hand spin muskox wool. It's actually quite easy to hand spin. We don't hand spin it, and actually the spinning process is the only process that leaves our hands. And we've been looking into actually getting the spinning done in Greenland as well, maybe opening our own spinning factory. But we are always, our raw material is always limited to how many musk oxen are shot for the meat. So this whole brand is a byproduct of a meat production or a meat hunt. So even if we take the tiniest spinning factory, we would be able to actually spin 1 month a year. So we're not big enough for this yet.
But does musk wool contains lanolin?
No, and that's why it doesn't trigger a lot of the same allergies. It also means that it needs to be washed. It doesn't clean itself like lamb wool does.
Okay, so and how is it for felting, for example? Is it
possible? You cannot felt with it. It doesn't shrink. No. You can boil it. It doesn't shrink. Okay. So that also means that I can dye all our yarn with all natural materials. So from a wild animal on the mountain to the finished product in the store, doesn't need any chemicals during that whole process.
Okay, that's great. Someone says that maybe a Greenland mill could also spin a Greenland sheep wool.
Yes, and I know that there are a very talented group in South Greenland looking into this. I don't have any sheep. I live about 2,000 kilometers away from a sheep. But I know that the sheep farmers in the South are very frustrated about the fact that they are not using the Greenlandic sheep wool for anything at the moment. They have tons of wool just laying there, and when they are When they don't have any more room for it, they burn it. And then they start over, stocking up again, hoping that before they have to burn it again, they will have a solution for the problem. Because Greenlandic sheep wool is not a lower quality than most other sheep wool. I just think the sheep farmers, they work so hard that they don't have the time or the energy to actually look into how do we get this to a finished product that we can sell. So yes.
Okay. Okay, Mia, thank you. I think your company and your mother's good work in the start is a great example for what we need to take something that is even worthless or a byproduct or a raw material that we have in hand and to make something great out of it. And you have shown us that that's possible. And this is a really inspiring story.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. There is a Mia, if you could put your website.
Yes, I will put the information in the chat.
Yeah, that would be great. Okay, now it's time for our last speaker today. Her name is Misa Hay. She moved to Shetland in 2004 after graduating from university. She studied tourism management and she worked for Shetland Island Tourism, Visit Scotland, Promote Shetland and Shetland Amenity Trust before setting up her own company, Shetland Wool Adventures. Her latest venture is 60 North Publishing, which was set up during the pandemic when tourism and travel were on hold. Misa published Shetland Wool Adventure Journal and works with the local writers as well. Misa is very passionate about Shetland heritage, textile, wool, and sustainable tourism. And now we hear what she has to tell us about wool travel in Shetland.
Thank you for the invitation. An introduction, and what interesting talks we've heard. So I hope that I'll be able to add a little bit to it just now from Shetland. So first of all, because I know everyone asks, are you from Shetland? I'm not from Shetland originally. I am from the Czech Republic, and I came to Shetland in 1999 for the first time. It was a school exchange, and I was staying with a family who showed me Shetland and took me on some amazing walks. And I initially fell in love with the place, and already then I knew I would have to come back. So I went to study tourism, and in 2004, as you said, Svanhildur, I moved to Shetland. There was a bit of a love story in there. That was my future husband-to-be, and that was the reason why I actually moved here. But since then, I've been involved in tourism and promoting the place, as it is my great passion. Some people might ask, why is it that someone else who is not from Shetland is promoting Shetland? But I think perhaps being from elsewhere shows me Shetland in a slightly different way. And I am extremely passionate about the place and about the heritage, about the people, about the culture, about the nature, and of course, wool and tourism. So I'll not make this any longer, but in terms of textiles and wool and knitting, Shetland has had a very long tradition in knitwear. It has reached the royal court, it has reached faraway places. It's been one of the things that has been exported from Shetland. But last century, in the 70s and 80s, this has changed because of the change of fashion, and wool became less fashionable. People stopped wearing wool, and this was the great decline in Shetland wool. And many crofters and farmers didn't think it was worthwhile keeping or doing anything with the wool, and it was left besides the road to rot, which was a great shame. It wasn't worth much money, exactly the same story as we've heard in the previous talks and presentations. but almost a decade ago, I mean, a decade ago or slightly more, something has changed. And this was due to several factors, but for the benefit of Shetland wool, it started becoming popular again. And the whole textile and wool industry has started going through a big resurgence and has been slowly rediscovering itself since and finding new innovative ways of promoting itself and starting new products as well. So one thing I wanted to talk about, because that was something close to my heart and something I was involved in for quite a long time, is Shetland Wool Week, which I believe, or many others do as well, that helped to renew the interest in Shetland knitting, hand knitting, and textiles. At that point in 2009, Promote Shetland was set up. Promote Shetland was an independent marketing organization. I'm saying independent of Scottish promotional body, Visit Scotland, and our task was to promote Shetland as a place to live, work, and do business with. But we were just a small team, 3 people, and our budgets were very limited as well. So we had to find innovative ways of how to promote a place and put it on the world stage. So we thought we'll go through the niche markets because that's the easiest way and the audience is already there, and we know how to market Shetland to those. And textiles was one of them, aside wildlife, food and drink, nature, fishing. But textiles was one of the ones that was close to my heart. And strangely enough, someone came to me at that point and they said, why isn't there a textile event in Shetland? It's an obvious thing, but why isn't there one? So that totally made sense. But because, as I said, we had limited budgets and resources, we couldn't just start something new from scratch. But at the same time, the first year of Shetland Wool Week took place, and it was organized by a local wool broker, Jamieson & Smith. And they and their parent company were working with Campaign for Wool and Prince Charles. And the first Shetland Wool Week took place, I think, in 2010. And mostly it was attended by locals, possibly about 50 or so. And there was a handful of classes and talks. So I went to Jamieson & Smith and we teamed up, and since then we had been working on making that event open to more partners and slowly growing it on a world stage in terms of audience. We quickly realized that social media, at that point mostly Facebook, could be on our side because, as I said, we didn't have much money to promote the event. In fact, to be honest, there never has been a dedicated budget for developing Wool Week. So we thought if we go cleverly and try to promote it on social media and building a mailing list and a database that could work in terms of growing the event. And one of the things that was probably the biggest success was the annual pattern for a knitted hat, which was available free of charge on the website, and people would just sign up and give us their email address. And since then, I think the mailing list has got about 40,000 subscribers, and they're all very loyal subscribers. And that's the way we've been marketing to them. Since then, now Wool Week in its 13th year, I think. Well, it's been on pause for 2 years, but on average, it's about 1,000 people that attend from around the globe. And those who can't come are also involved because we try to make effort for streaming the event a lot. But also at this point, I wanted to mention a publication that was started as a way of generating income. I'll maybe go a bit to that as well in terms of generating income and trying to make the event sustainable and able to pay for itself. I had to come up with some ways of generating income. So I was the Shetland Wool Annual. These are just the two first ones. To a publication that was started, and again, I was very lucky because I had a boss that said, you know, you can make mistakes, but only make it once. So he gave me a great deal of freedom in being creative and being able to start new projects. So since then, the Wool Week Annual has been very popular, and it's a compilation of local designers that put together patterns using local Shetland yarn. And the beauty of that is that there are so many knitters around the world that then go and share their knitted projects. So it's a great way of promoting the event and promoting Shetland as a place. So I feel after the decade plus of the efforts of putting into running the event, I feel like we've done the greater point, and that is promoting Shetland as a place to visit. And of course, what I wanted to say, it is not just about promoting Shetland, but also it goes the other way around, how tourism helps bringing people here and grows the interest in Shetland textiles and Shetland wool, and something that's been such great big tradition for Shetland. I think another strength of Shetland Wool Week is that people get together and work together for the bigger good, which is promoting Shetland and sharing their culture and heritage with knitters from around the world. So I wanted to talk about tours because I think that's what I was asked to talk about most importantly. During Wool Week, we knew that some people wanted a more exclusive and immersive experience where they would be looked after. So I thought we could try something like a tour for 10, 12 people and see how that would go. That was very popular. Again, we teamed up with Jamieson and Smith initially and ran the tour, and then it was run by Shetland Wool Week itself. But unfortunately, as anyone who knows who runs anything in tourism, there is such a huge demand on staff time. And at that point, it wasn't possible to continue running the holidays, and the committee decided to only focus on promoting or running the event itself. So still something at the back of my mind was telling me it's a great shame not to be offering something more packaged and working with everyone involved in the industry and bringing more people here who, by the way, are great spenders. I think on average, the spend in Shetland is something between £600 to £800 for those who come on textile or knitting tours. So it's not just the accommodation and the food and drink, but they also want to buy local yarn and they want to buy knitwear. So they are very valued customers and clients. So this was coming to 2016, and unfortunately it was a bit political. My organization lost the Promote Shetland contract, and at that point I thought maybe something is happening, and that was the starting point of me deciding to go freelance and start my own company, Shetland Wool Adventures. And again, it was slightly scary because from being employed since the young age to actually become self-employed and be purely responsible for my own actions and earnings was scary, but I've never looked back, and it's been incredible being able to offer the experience to all those visitors and friends. I have to say I became a friend with many of them, and I feel my job is done when someone says at the end of the tour that they fell in love with Shetland and they'll want to come back or they would want to move. So it's greatly satisfying anyway. Of course, then in 2020, that was the pandemic, which was a very unfortunate year because I was supposed to have the biggest season in terms of tours, and there were 13 fully booked tours, which was just over 150 people, which all those had to be put on hold and eventually refunded because those tours never could take place. I was very worrying, as anyone in tourism will say. Just the great uncertainty and not knowing from day to day what's going to happen. Can we restart next month, next year? No one knew. So the biggest worry was obviously keeping the company going financially, and just generating income. So because I already had that experience from publishing, I decided to give it a go and take a risk. And that was the start of the Shetland Wool Adventures journal, which again, this was the first one. And then there were two more. And it's a publication that not only has knitting patterns, but it also promotes the place. It has good walks, it has good recipes, interviews, and generally acts as a promotion of the place. So I think it seems like there is a pattern in terms of what I do. It is all about placing the Shetland on the map and promoting what's so special about it. So that was the story of Shetland Wool Adventures and 16 North Publishing. Often I get asked what I think the future of Shetland textiles is and Shetland wool. And I do think that the future is actually very good because there are so many opportunities, but we do have challenges, and probably the biggest one is trying to persuade young people to take it as a career and to go into crafting and farming and make enough money to actually make livelihood of this. Also, it's the drive for increasing the price of wool. Again, much has been done about this recently, and I feel so excited to see now smaller producers of yarn. Often it's people with their own sheep and like you said earlier on, buying wool from the neighboring crofts and producing their own yarn. So therefore they can add some value and generate a bit more income. So I think there is a lot of potential there in terms of tourism as well. I do hope that it'll be possible to restart the tours next year, but we've got our own problems such as accommodation and not enough of it. So it's never easy, but I've truly enjoyed this, and I hope I still have more to contribute. And I just thought I would play you just a short video. Hopefully I can get this going. Sorry, was the video playing or was it no?
No.
Oh, okay, I do apologize. I think, yeah, I'm having a bit of a technical difficulty here, but yeah, I do apologize for that.
You have to press share screen and then choose the...
Oh, yes. Is it okay now?
There's nothing showing.
Yeah.
Or no, there's nothing. You press share screen and then you choose the one you're going to share and then press share again.
Sorry, I think it's just not going to work, this one. So no, okay. I think that's all from me just now.
Thank you, dear Misa. I think this was a really good final talk today, because we started with a lot of questions about authenticity. I got it now. And what is local and what is real and what do tourists want and so on. And to get a little insight into the real wool tourism is really important for us. And I believe that we can raise awareness and we can raise the value and the price of wool through that, through tourism. And because there are a lot of nerds, knitting and wool nerds around the world who are willing to travel and get to know this great material and the local places who produce it and so on. So we have a lot of opportunities. And we have heard a lot of interesting stories, very inspiring stories about wool, about local resources, about opportunities. And I want to thank you all for participating today. I thank you speakers for your great talks. It has been a really good conference, I would say. Unfortunately, we were not able to open for many open for questions, but because we are so many that we were afraid of the time limits. We have been recording this event, and we will probably put the record on the event on Facebook, but I will send all the people who sent me email, I will let you know by email where to find it. And you can also find the event Wool Tourism and Innovation on Facebook. And we will publish it there, maybe not today, but soon. I want to thank you all who listened, and I hope you enjoyed the day with us. And I also want to thank my NORA fellows for my friends in the project Woolwalks and Workshop for a great project, and I hope you will see the results of that next year with a lot of tours available to these countries. So the time is up. It's 4 to 3 in Iceland, so we are in our time box. So thank you again. I really enjoyed this conference, and I hope you did it too. Have a nice day and evening. Bye-bye.